everyone. Hello. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We have a great webinar today all about chimney swifts. We're so excited to have you join us to learn more about these amazing birds and have our guest speaker, Linnea from Michigan Audubon. My name is Sarah Halson. I am the program coordinator for Detroit Audubon, an organization dedicated to fostering the appreciation and conservation of birds and the environment that we share. We could not do the work we do without our funders and our members, so I wanted to thank any of those of you who are members and are supporting projects like today. Some quick Zoom housekeeping before we begin today. You're able to control your video and microphone on the bottom left of your screen, so we ask you keep yourself muted so we can not receive feedback from your microphones. You can see closed captioning today by clicking on the live transcript or subtitles on the bottom of your screen. And you can open the chat box by clicking on the chat button on the bottom of your screen. We will have time for questions at the end of the presentation. So please add any questions you might have to the chat. And we are also recording the webinar today, and it will be shared via email in the next week or two. If you have any further questions, please reach out to myself and I will do my best to assist you. So now I'd like to introduce Linnea. She is an avid, let me admit a few more people, sorry. And Linnea is an avid birder, and though she doesn't like to pick favorites, she really appreciates the beauty of warblers and the subtlety of flycatchers. She grew up in Minnesota and feels lucky to have parents who encouraged her to get outdoors and get her involved with birding and other outdoor pursuits at an early age. Linnea has been working in the avian conservation field for the past 13 years and has been with Michigan Audubon since June 2018. Michigan Audubon's core mission aligns well with Linnea's own values to connect birds and people, and to do so by employing sound conservation science, research, outreach, and education. And Linnea continues to enjoy meeting and working with like-minded people in Michigan. Thank you and welcome, Linnea.
Thank you, Sarah. Shall I go ahead and share my screen?
Go for it.
All right, bear with me here. All right, we're looking good there on everyone else's end?
Yep, it looks great.
All right, great. Well, thanks for joining us today. I love talking about chimney swifts. As Sarah said in her introduction for me, I don't like to pick favorites, but swifts are up there. They're a very fun species to observe in their aerial acrobatics. So yes, I'm Linnea Rouse. I'm the Conservation Program Coordinator for Michigan Audubon, and I'm very happy to be here with everyone today. Michigan Audubon's mission is to connect birds and people for the benefit of both through conservation, education, and research efforts in the whole state of Michigan. There's lots of different ways for people to get involved. We do a lot with community science projects, habitat and bird monitoring projects at Michigan Audubon bird sanctuaries. We have bird workshops and tours. There's different places for you to go visit, including Whitefish Point Bird Observatory. So check out our website if you get a chance later. Today, we'll be talking about chimney swifts, but this is housed within the Michigan Bird Friendlies Community Program, Michigan Audubon. And just briefly, there's kind of four main focus areas here. We hope that everybody can become more informed and educated. Sorry, I just need to pause for a second. Sarah, it looks like there's some like a pen kind of thing going on the screen.
Well, I am seeing that.
The red ink.
I see it, and you're not seeing it on your screen directly, or like on the. Yeah, I'm not sure I'm seeing it. I'm not sure how to. What that is coming from. If you want to close out and open it again and see if that makes any difference.
Yeah, I apologize for this, but we'll do this real quick.
I'm not seeing it now.
So I'm just going to skip ahead to where we're at. So
looks
getting back into it. Sorry for that delay, everyone. So Michigan Bird Friendly Communities, our program focus is on educating and informing people about the bird conservation needs, especially in urban areas, but also throughout the state. It's about learning more and sharing information about native plants and how those benefit birds as well as pollinators and other wildlife. Raising awareness for and measuring and increasing roosting and nesting site availability for two kind of human habitat dependent birds, one of whom we'll talk about today, and that's the chimney swift. And finally, reducing hazards of human places that we share with birds. For example, collisions with windows and night lighting and those impacts to migrating birds. Today, we're going to talk about chimney swifts. So let's meet the chimney swift. Chimney swifts are, as many people like to describe them, a cigar with wings. Their body is sort of a stout, elongated oval shape with wings. And if you see them in flight, that's kind of a great descriptor for them. They're only about 4.5 to 6 inches long, so they're pretty small. Their wingspan is up to 12 inches, so they do have quite long wings. Surprisingly, they weigh less than an ounce. An ounce is about equal to the weight of one slice of wheat bread. So that's pretty lightweight bird. And overall, they're a brown color, kind of a dark brown with a tan throat. Chimney swifts are in the bird family Apotidae, which is from Latin meaning no feet. Of course, they do have feet, but their feet are very specially adapted. They can't actually perch in the way that many of our typical perching birds do. For example, robins or cardinals or chickadees and so forth. Chimney swifts have a unique toe arrangement. It's called pamprodactyl, and this means that all 4 of their toes are aligned in one direction. It allows them to cling to the vertical surface, such as the inside of a chimney. A couple of key features here with the chimney swifts. Another adaptation to help them perch on vertical surfaces are these bristle tips to their tail feathers. It's probably something that you would never see in the wild because you would be very lucky to see a swift that close. They're usually way up high in the sky or roosting inside of a chimney. I already mentioned their cigar with wing shape. This is an image showing a more typical view of chimney swifts, which is far away and up high. And let's see if we've got this audio clip here. Let's see if you can hear. This is their twittering flight call. Flight twittering. It's a sound that can be very easily overlooked, but once you hear it and recognize it, you will hear them especially in urban centers during the summer. Chimney swifts are in the order Caprimulgiformes. They're in the family Apotidae. They're closely related to hummingbirds and nightjars, less related to swallows, but they look very similar to swallows. Swallows are in the order Passeriformes, so they have, thinking back to that image of the feet slide, they have a different way of perching. Chimney swifts, we'll just talk about a few key differences with swallows here. So again, they're best identified by their flight behavior and sound because from a distance, they can look similar. So we have chimney swifts with a very short stubby tail, long oval shaped body. Swallow has more of a larger, broader tail depending on the species. And then the wing shape on the chimney swifts, we have a long, narrow wing. And on the swallows, you can kind of think of it as more of a triangular shaped wing. Tree swallows specifically have white bellies, and they can perch like a normal passerine songbird. I don't like to use the word normal, but there we go. So again, another look-alike for chimney swifts are bats, bat species. And a couple of key identifiers here. Again, with the chimney swifts, we have sort of an oval-shaped body, long elongated wing. And with bats, it's a little bit different overall shape, more like a W almost, or a triangular kind of body shape. Let's talk about chimney swift diet. So looking at their bill, what do we think they eat? Their bill is very short and stubby, not great perhaps for cracking open nuts or seeds. The chimney swifts are insectivores. They eat insects on the wing, so that means that they're an aerial insectivore. Family of swifts can eat between 5,000 to 6,000 insects each day, which is quite incredible. They're sort of a friendly neighborhood pest control, environmentally friendly, economical, 5-star rating. But if this is their diet, where are they foraging? So some of the different chimney swift habitats. Let's take a look at some of the places where we might find chimney swifts and when. So we've got some open sky here, above wetlands, lots of insects produced by wetlands. Above rivers, again, more insects emerging from rivers. Just above city parks, open spaces, and of course in cities. In Michigan, chimney swifts, they're neotropical migrants, meaning that they move from where resources are seasonally abundant. So in Michigan, they're here roughly from about late April through September, October, and then they head south. They're following their food resources, which are insects in this case. I pulled up this neat animated abundance map from eBird. This comes from data from observations of everybody like yourselves who you might have contributed an eBird list. This is community science in action, informing research, which is really cool. So let's see if this plays real quick here. This shows relative abundance of where chimney swifts are at different times of year. So I'll play through it a couple of times, but watch as the darker areas, that's where chimney swifts are most abundant. So let's play through this again. And watch here, as we get through April and May, they'll start coming into Michigan. This is during the summer breeding season. September, October, they're starting to head south again for the rest of the year. So pretty cool animation of chimney swift migration and where they're at any given time of year. Some studies have shown that chimney swifts are actually attracted to urban areas. You can see on this upper left map, this is chimney swifts on the 30th of June, predicted probability of occurrence, meaning that that is where they're most likely to be during that time period. Those reddish dark areas, those are hotspots. You can even see Detroit and the Detroit metro area there up in Michigan. The same study showed that where housing density units increased, so more housing per square mile, it's more likely that chimney swifts would be found there. So what attracts them to cities? Well, we've got some chimney living. So chimney swifts are formerly known as the American swift, and their switch from sort of a natural habitat of tree cavities or old standing dead trees to chimneys inspired the new name of chimney swifts. As early as 1672, there are records from New England where chimney swifts began nesting in chimneys. By the late 1700s, chimney swifts nested almost exclusively in chimneys on the East Coast. And fewer than about 24 instances have been reported of natural cavity nesting since 1900. So it still occurs, but it's much less common. Chimney swifts begin breeding at about 2 years old. They're mostly monogamous and they mate for life typically. And pairs form this really neat flying V display. And if you get a chance to observe this in, we'll say May to early June, it's really neat to watch. For their breeding, the nest is a small cup of sticks that's actually glued with saliva. Sort of a sticky saliva is produced during the breeding season, during the nest building season. Nests are built over about 18 to 30 days, and the nest is glued to the wall, the inside wall of the chimney. So it's glued to this vertical surface. Both the male and a female help build the nest and help feed the young and incubate when they're still in eggs. Sometimes there's helpers or other adult chimney swifts that help raise the young as well. But there's only one nest in a single structure, so one nest per chimney. And this image is from an old John James Audubon print, which if we zoom in here, you can see that the old name, the original name for this bird was, well, it's the American swift. And just another up close image here of a chimney swift nest. And all these sticks are held together with saliva, that chimney swift saliva. If you do a search on the internet or YouTube for chimney swift nest building, there's actually some really great videos from nest cams that were inside nest towers. So I encourage you to take a moment and do some internet search for chimney swift nest building. It's pretty cool. As far as raising young, we've got usually 4 to 5 white eggs per nest. There's a 16 to 21 day incubation, so about 2 to 3 weeks. The young are hatched without feathers and they're blind when they're hatched, which means that they are altricial young. The chicks spend about another 2 to 3 weeks or 14 to 19 days in the nest. And with the two parents and the chicks, they can consume up to 12,000 flying insects per day. So they need a lot of insects. Chimney swifts some organizations and individuals are starting to build artificial nesting towers. These can be anything from a freestanding plywood tower to something made out of bricks or other materials. Typically they are 12 feet tall and they mostly attract breeding birds, so not roosting birds. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. There's been some mixed results with these. Just a couple of more images or varieties of the chimney swift tower I wanted to show you. This is a nesting tower in Georgia. Audubon of Western Pennsylvania installed more than 100 towers in local parks, and they experienced about 50% use of those towers with chimney swifts. And they modified the structure to reduce the cost to about $200 per tower, so that's pretty good. In Michigan, Michigan Audubon has installed 4 towers in Lansing area. We have a 5th constructed, but it wasn't installed in 2020 due to COVID delays. There's one at Chippewa Nature Center. An Eagle Scout troop from Mount Pleasant has installed one. I know that there must be others, but I don't have them here in my slide. As of yet, I don't personally know of any use of chimney swift towers in Michigan, but if you know of some, please let me know. We'd love to hear about it. With Michigan Audubon's towers, we engaged with high school students, one of the environmental action clubs, to help construct towers and to help install them at a few sites in Lansing, including a public town park, a nature center, and a middle school. And the other 2 that I mentioned in Lansing, one is at a Michigan Audubon Sanctuary, another one will be installed at the Wildflower Association of Michigan and Michigan Audubon's office space. So even though chimney swifts are fairly territorial during the breeding season, as I mentioned, just 1 nest per chimney, during migration, they actually roost together in the thousands. They'll form massive communal roosts each evening. In Michigan, there's been some reports of a couple thousand in chimneys, but there's been recordings of them with up to 10,000 in one large chimney. Why? We think it might be somewhat due to safety numbers, sharing of body heat. There's actually been measurements taken that show the temperatures inside the chimney to be 70 degrees warmer inside a roost than the outside air. And during the fall season, September and October, we can get some pretty chilly nights. So that might be one of those reasons. So let's review. Chimney swifts are human dependent for nesting or roosting structures. They are aerial insectivores, or they eat insects. They form massive roosts, up to 10,000 birds in one chimney during migration. They're a pretty common species, so chimney swifts are doing well, right? Unfortunately, they aren't doing so great. They are a common bird still, but they are a common bird in a steep decline. Range-wide, their decline has been about negative 2.5% decline per year between 1966 and 2015. This is documented by the National Breeding Birds Survey. So overall, from the 1960s until 2015, that was a cumulative decline of 72%. That's huge. And this map shows the red areas are places where they've declined more than other places. There are some different reasons for decline of chimney swifts. A main one could be the limitation of pesticides like neonicotinoids on insect populations, which is impacting the food source for chimney swifts and other aerial insectivores. Many aerial insectivores are declining. You can see in purple this bottom line on this graph that is going in a very steep trend here. They've been declining quite a lot since 1970. Again, this is information from the Breeding Bird Survey. Another reason for decline is a loss of breeding and roosting habitat in North America. There's been demolition of large chimney sites, whether that's a power plant or whether that's caps or changes to different heating systems for our houses. So chimney caps to keep out anything from squirrels to keeping out chimney swifts. Or changes to the chimney being brick to ceramic or other materials that the chimney swift can't cling to and build a nest on. Loss of habitat in Central and South America has also been impactful for chimney swifts because that is where they're spending the rest of the year. That's where they're wintering. So unsustainable logging or different land use changes for agriculture or development in Central and South America has also been impacting the birds that call Michigan home in the summertime. So how can we help chimney swifts? I don't want to be all doom and gloom here. We can help them in many different ways. So number one thing is we can give them food. So at home, if you can avoid pesticides, that'll benefit a lot of different birds and insects, beneficial insects. Planting native plants in your yard can also help, again, tied to those native insect populations. In your community, you could do activities such as helping with native gardens in your community. We can give them shelter. This can range from uncapping your chimney seasonally, so perhaps from April through October. If you do clean your chimney annually, it's a good idea to schedule that cleaning before or after the chimney swift breeding season. If you are converting to gas, consider using a ventless fireplace. During the summer, if chimney swifts are using your chimney, it's a good idea to keep the damper closed during the summer. And finally, a chimney swift nesting tower could be built in your neighborhood. This could be a community project at a local park with different partners, or it could be on private property. I know of a handful of people who have done this. Chimney swift nesting tower plans can be found online. I recommend the resource, it's chimneyswifts.org, and I'll list that on my last slide of this presentation as well. We can also help chimney swifts by doing activities such as buying sustainable shade-grown coffee or sustainable forestry certified wood products. Shade-grown coffee is an important one because that's a big impact to habitat on the wintering grounds. So it's impacts from different areas of our life that can help bird populations or harm them. We can also help chimney swifts by monitoring where they are roosting, scouting for new chimneys that we don't know about or for chimneys that they're using. And scouting can be done at any time of day. Michigan Audubon, on our website, we have a form where we'd love it if you enter information about potential roost sites or known roost sites where you see chimney swifts entering and using the chimney. In Michigan, we have, this is a map that you can find on our website. We have had volunteers submit locations for confirmed roost sites, which are those in blue, and potential roost chimneys, which are those in orange on the map. So you might wonder where to look. You can look at old schools, or not old schools. You can look at schools, which typically have larger chimneys, at churches, old factories, including the Swift Sanctuary, which is in Farmington, Michigan. If you get a chance to go here during especially the fall migration, it can be quite a spectacle to see chimney swifts roosting in this large chimney. Chimney swift nights out are a great way to engage in your community, to have in years where we're not all trying to socially distance, but even in such years, 2020, doing a chimney swift night out with just your family can be a really exciting way to engage kids with watching chimney swifts, contributing to this community science project, and getting people excited who might not otherwise necessarily think about birds. And all of the information that you collect during a chimney swift night out, we'd love again for you to enter that information on the Michigan Audubon website. So I think I went a little bit faster than I had intended, but that leaves more time for questions. So I just want to conclude here though with a few main points. Chimney swifts are not bats. This is a common misconception of people who are less familiar with birds, but who may hear something in their chimney. Chimney swifts do benefit people because they provide a natural pest control for some of those frustrating insects. Chimney swifts do depend on brick chimneys, and we can help them in our communities by protecting those existing roost sites from demolition. We can help them with providing artificial nest towers. We can help them with providing native plants and protecting their insect food resources. And really, chimney swifts need all of our help to thrive in Michigan. So I'm going to list a couple of resources here if you want to check out some of these websites later. The Michigan Audubon website. There's a great Facebook group called Chimney Swift Working Group, and there's a link there. And then again, the chimneyswifts.org, that's a great location to find plans for doing a chimney swift nesting tower. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Okay, great. Thank you. Great presentation. Okay, we have a couple questions. Kat asked, wondering about the chimney swifts nesting at church buildings. In the summer, we see many birds feeding near evenings nearby, and this church has a bell tower. So wondering if you know more about that, I guess, or
Yeah, I don't know specifically about that building, but it seems likely. And that would be a great one for you to check out both during the breeding season. So I recommend going there in June and watching, especially throughout the day if they do have a nest in there, but especially at evening if they're just using it as a roost site. And in the fall migration, the best times to watch are mid-August through mid-September in Michigan, in most of Michigan. And that'd be a good time to go out in the evening or at dawn when the chimney swifts might be leaving the roost site to watch.
good point. I have not done the early morning dawn watch. That would be fun too. My question real quick, what was Linnea, when was the first time you saw um the in the fall or in the spring when was the first time you watched the chimney swifts?
The chimney
So when
swift roosts watching. Actually, the
Yes.
first time I watched it was actually with my first year working for Michigan Audubon in 2018, which is a little bit surprising for myself to reflect on because I've been birding for most of my life. My parents introduced me to birding as a kid, and as an adult, I got into bird research jobs and conservation positions like this one from my early 20s. So it's surprising to look back and think I hadn't actually realized about chimney swifts roosting until just a couple of years ago.
Cool. And that's interesting. Yeah, if that was recent for you, I'm sure there's a lot of other people that have similar stories. So, but it is, any of you who haven't seen it, it is absolutely amazing.
It's
and
pretty
worth.
fun to watch too. I guess I didn't describe it so much, but in a roost site where you might have a couple hundred birds, so not even too many, it's fascinating because one chimney swift or two or a few will start approaching the chimney when it starts getting darker out. It's still light enough to see, to visibly see the chimney swifts. And eventually more and more chimney swifts will gather and they kind of spiral down into the chimney like a tornado almost of chimney swifts. And when they're going in there, if there's many swifts going in, it's just amazing to watch.
Yes, thanks for describing that. Okay, another question from Lynn. What did human-dependent chimney swifts do before humans constructed chimneys?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I don't know a ton about their natural life history prior to human settlement because it wasn't studied before European settlers came to North America. However, the instances where they are using trees, they're large, mature trees that are hollow on the inside. So part of that could be that we don't have a lot of old growth forest left. And where we do, it's important for forest managers to consider leaving those standing dead trees. Oftentimes that's not part of what's left in a forest. So part of managing forests can be to benefit the birds. It's not necessarily about having viable forest products. There can be a balance between both.
Definitely. Okay, someone had a specific question, Tyler, about the $200 towers from Pennsylvania. How could they find the designs? I
That's a
guess.
great question. I recommend contacting Audubon in Western Pennsylvania directly. I don't have a copy of their designs or their cost list for materials. The towers that Michigan Audubon constructed ranged from about $600 to $700 per tower. So it does have a bit of a cost to it depending on what materials you use.
Great, thank you. Lori is asking where a good nursery is to find native plants in Michigan.
That's a great question. It depends on where in Michigan you are. In southern Michigan, one of the native plant nurseries that I highly recommend is Wild Type Nursery, which is located in Mason. That's just south of Lansing. We have on the Michigan Audubon website, however, we do have several different nurseries or native plant sources listed. Some will sell plant seedlings or larger developed shrubs or even trees. Some will sell just seed. So it kind of depends on what you want. On the michiganaudubon.org website, if you check out our bird-friendly communities page, that's where you'll find information both on native plants and on chimney swifts.
Great, thank you. Someone, Alexander from Minnesota, is asking if there's any resources for them because they want to help too. So wondering if you know if any specific to Minnesota. I'm sure a lot of those in Pennsylvania and Michigan are also
Yeah,
the same resources, but
I'm not sure about a lot of the resources for Minnesota specifically. For something like doing an artificial nesting tower, the design can be, what you want it to be. And actually the designs that we used came from an organization based out of Texas. For information on chimney swift roost sites and that sort of thing, I don't believe that exists for Minnesota. So if you have a local Audubon chapter or a local birding club or other conservation organization, I'd encourage you to bring it up as something that maybe as a group you could take on.
great.
And folks can feel free to email me too if they want to chat more about starting up conservation projects in their community.
Great. Susan lives in Washington. She says they have swifts there and wondering how they're related to the swifts, the chimney swifts here in our part of the country.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I don't know a lot about Fox's swifts, but they are, I believe they're in the same family, the Apoididae, given that they're a swift. Beyond that, I really don't know a lot about their habitat use, their migratory patterns. But yeah, I'd love to learn more.
Yes, we have another question about them too. So Paul is asking about if we know if they're in decline. So I'm not as familiar with them.
Yeah, I'm not
either,
sure.
so.
A great resource though that I often go to when I have questions myself about birds and conservation issues, I go to allaboutbirds.org. That's the Cornell Lab of Ornithology website, and you can search for specific species and it'll have information about their distribution, their trends, even about their eating habits, their breeding, all sorts of information.
Yes, excellent resource. Ben asks, how far from a roost will swifts wander to feed?
I don't know. That's a really great question. I've heard from other researchers, other folks, that we don't know a lot about chimney swift life history because they're very difficult to study. They're not as easily tracked as some of our songbirds that are more ground based, or at least they're using habitat that we can follow them around in. So that's a really great question, and I wish I knew the answer.
Awesome. But it is true. It's so helpful to have people and our community scientists to be volunteering and posting where they see chimney swifts to help with some of that research. Okay, Chris asks, do the swifts roost in chimneys all summer after the breeding season? Are they in smaller groups then?
They're typically in smaller groups. So as I mentioned in my presentation, usually there is just one nest per chimney, but with the two adults that are the breeding pair, there may also be helpers who either roost there with them or maybe they roost in a different chimney. They only form the really large communal roosts during migration. So in the summer, they're in smaller groups and probably using smaller chimneys.
All right, great, thanks. And Jim Bull, who is on our board at Detroit Audubon, he did post that Vox's swifts are endangered. So for those
Thank
of
you,
you
Jen.
interested on the West Coast. Um, Let me see if there's more questions. We're getting a lot of great ideas of different places to get native plants. So thank you everyone for posting some different ideas. Um, Let me just check Facebook real quick to see if I have any questions in there. All right, I don't. So
That's a
great.
good point that Sarah's just mentioning. In the chat, there's folks posting about where to find native plants. I really think that as a community, we are each other's best resources. So whether that's connecting this way via webinar or on social media or direct communication, email or phone, whatever it is, I really encourage folks to, reach out to each other and share ideas and information.
Absolutely. And I will be sending out a recording from this webinar as well as some of the resources from Linnea and her email. So like she said, if you wanted to contact her and make some of those connections, you absolutely should. Um, all right. I don't see any more questions. So we are ending a bit early. There are some good videos as well online that show some of that tornado roosting into chimneys. But it is definitely much better in person for sure. So I recommend that. But thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Linnea. What a wonderful presentation. They're one of my favorite birds as well. And so I love hearing and learning more about them. Um, uh, Let everyone know that later this month we'll have more webinars about birding by ear and about ecology on the Detroit River. We list our webinar schedule on our website, on our Facebook page, and in our Flyway Express e-newsletter. And we'd love to have you join us as a Detroit Audubon chapter member if you aren't already. So reach out to ask us how. Everyone have a wonderful rest of your day. And thank you again so much, Linnea, for sharing your time and expertise.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me, and thanks to everyone for listening in.
Thank you. Bye-bye.